All right, we have finally made it to the research section of this course. All right, so by now, if you've done your homework, we should, and not just skipping through and watching the videos, we should have a list of your passions and interests, rank them 1 through 3 with a list of your skills, personal as well as professional experiences that relate to those passions and interests, and some problems that you've had personally while dealing with other businesses in this same industry. All right, so today what we're going to be doing is doing some hard research and making some real decisions. All right, so you know what that means, you know what time it is, it's pen and paper time. So go ahead, grab that pen, grab that paper, and here we go. So at the top of a new page, we're going to write business classification. All right, business classification. And then we're going to make a list of all the major considerations, or some of the starting major considerations for this business idea that we've been forming, so that we can take it from a concept into reality. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to leave 3 spaces between each one of these considerations, so that we have some space to jot some notes in under them. All right, so the first thing that we're going to have to do is classify the business. Right, so there are 2 types of systems that we're going to be looking at for classification. We're really going to only be using one, but just so that you are aware, in North America there are 2 systems. All right, so the first one is the NAICS, so that's NAICS, and the second one is the SIC, or SIC. All right, so the NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System, and the SIC stands for Standard Industry Classification. All right, so what those are is they classify your business by the basic purpose and basic activities of the business, so that the IRS and your bank and other investors can basically understand what it is that you do, what type of business are they looking at. You know, so in your first heading, what we're going to do, we're going to go to NAICS.com. So that's NAICS.com. All right, once you get there, we're going to look at the menu. So in the top right corner, I believe it is, you should have those 3 bars. Click on the menu, and once that comes down, you're going to have NAICS search, a NAICS search. All right, so we're going to click on that. On the new page, in the search bar, we're going to type in the 1 or 2 words that describes your business, right? So for example, if you have if you want to start a pet grooming business, you're going to write in pet grooming. If it's going to be like a self-storage business, you're going to write self-storage. Whatever 1 or 2 words kind of describes the business that you're going to get into, type that in there, hit enter, and let's see what the search results come back with. All right, so when the results come up, you're going to have a 6-digit number, right? You may have a few of them. Sometimes there are related industries that have a few different classifications that they use. We're going to look at whichever one really describes your business, not one of the associated NAICS numbers. All right, so in your first line, you're going to write down that number. That is your NAICS number. That's the one that you're going to be putting on loan applications. That's the one that you're going to use with the IRS when you're getting your EIN number or your FEIN number, your Federal Employer Identification number, so you can actually hire people. So that is a very important number. Write that down. All right, now we're going to leave 3 spaces. And I want you to go ahead and click on that number, and when the page loads, you should see like 12 or so of the top companies in that sector or in that industry. It's going to be listed there. What we're going to do is we're going to go through not each one of those, but maybe like the higher 2, maybe 2 or 3 in the middle, and 2 or 3 towards the end, right? So when you click on one of those, it's going to give you some information. It's going to have like a profile for them. It's going to have their website there. It's going to tell you what their gross income is, how much money they made for the previous tax year, as well as how many locations they have, how many employees they have per location. I mean in total, I'm sorry, in total. And it's going to have a lot of information there. So I want you to click on their website, right? When you click on their website, sometimes that company is actually a holding company, and they own a bunch of other brands under that company, right? So when you click on that company, they may have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 brands. Sometimes brands that we recognize but didn't know that the holding company was the one who really owned them, or that they were related under the same umbrella. So we want to make a note of that. Also, take note of the businesses that are more closely related to the things that you want to be selling or offering your services or products, right? So let's say if you're in the food industry and you're looking for restaurants, and one of those in the same NAICS category happens to be like a food distributor, and that distributor owns a bunch of brands of like frozen foods that they sell at the grocery store, right? So that wouldn't really be related to what you want to do if you're trying to open up a restaurant. But at the same time, that company may also have some restaurant holdings. So, look at the top ones, some of the middle ones, some of the ones at the end, and see kind of where you find the commonality and the type of business that you want to run, as well as the ones that are featured. All right. So go through it, pause the video, and once you find like the 5 or 6 that really relate to what you want to do, unpause the video and we'll continue. Okay. So now you've figured out which one of these businesses is really kind of what you want to model yours after. All right. One of the considerations that you're going to have is, how big do I really want my business to be? How much income are you really looking to make in the long run? Not, next week, next month, 2-3 years, but ultimately, let's say 10 years, 20 years down the line. How much money do you really want to be making? What kind of income are you looking for? And what type of business do you really want to build? So one of the considerations is most likely somewhere between 5 and 15% of the gross income is going to be more or less the profits that you're going to be looking for as the CEO or as the owner of this corporation, right? So if we're looking at at some of these top companies, and they're like in the billions in gross revenue, right? And we're looking at, okay, let's say 5% of $10 billion as a company. How much money is that, right? Is that more or less where your expectations are as far as how much money you want to be making with the company? Maybe you only want to make $50 or $100 or $200,000. Maybe you don't need $100 million, right? So let's kind of work the math backwards and figure out, okay, well, how big of a company do you really need for your goals? So in the third line, right, so we already have the first one, which is what is your classification number? The second one, which is what's it called? Okay, yeah, so I think we skipped a step. So the first one's going to be the classification. The second one is going to be how much gross revenue these companies are more or less averaging. So you're going to take an average of the 5 that we talked about, add them all together, divide that number by 5, and then that'll tell you an average gross revenue of the top companies. And then in line 3, we're going to look at total sales, right? So in each one of these companies, we're going to look at total sales, and then we're going to divide that number by the number of employees that they have, right? So what that's going to tell you is how big of a company do you need to get the type of revenue that you're looking for. For example, in the landscaping industry, right? On average, if you do the math, you have multi-billion-dollar companies, you have multi-million-dollar companies, but what it comes down to is an average per employee of about $220,000 to $230,000 per year per employee in gross revenue. So that means that if I have 10 employees, a good rule of thumb is we should be making probably $2.2 million gross per year. right? So gross means not including the fixed costs that we have, the overhead, such as the building or land or equipment that we're paying for, as well as the variable costs. So for each job or each property that we manage, there's going to be variable costs like fuel, labor, and so on. None of that is taken out of the gross. The gross is the total amount of money that came in. So each employee would have to be bringing in, or the company as a whole would have to be bringing in about $225,000 for each employee that we have. It's good to have that information in the back of your mind when you're thinking about, hey, you know what, I want to hire 5 people. Well, if you're going to hire 5 people, is the company grossing about $1 million to really support that? You know. So moving forward, we have the total sales divided by the number of employees for the largest, some of the middle range companies on that page, and also for the bottom few. So once we have that average, also keep in mind that if you're coming up with different ranges of numbers, also remember that some of these companies may not strictly use employees in the same sense of what they report. They may have a lot of 1099s. They may have volunteers and so on that wouldn't be counted as employees. So that's why we're looking at averages to more or less get a sense of how many people they really have working there. So we have a lot to think about. All right, we've figured out what the business classification is. We've extrapolated to some of the largest companies in that industry to figure out, okay, where do we want to land? Some guidelines on the way up as far as how many locations, how many employees, based on how much money we're looking at. 5 or 10% of the gross profits is what we're looking at to be making annually, further down the line in the future. And last but not least, our 4th category is going to be the SBA, right? So now that we have all of this information, we kind of have more of a direction of where we want to go with the business. And the SBA has a lot of great information on funding, on loans. They have grants. They have information on grants that are available, and we're going to need some of this information to be able to apply for some of those. So I want you guys to write down sba.gov, sba.gov. And what you're going to do there is you're going to click on menu, the same how we did at the NAICS website. We're going to click on menu, and they have a section called Business Guide, right? So we can look at the business guide. We can look at their funding programs. They also have federal contracting, and there's a whole lot more. So what we're going to do is you guys can go ahead and go through some of those articles that they have there, some of the resources that they have there, familiarize yourself with that website. And next in coming videos, we're going to be talking about business plans and exactly what we should be looking for, how we're going to set up the business in order to reach those goals, and how we're going to present that not only to banks, but also other investors, maybe crowdfunding sources, and so on, so that we can get to a place that we all want to be.